Quick correction, Felix and Paul, it's actually Felix and Paul Studios. So the reason why it's called Felix and Paul is because we created a studio based on the vision of my two colleagues, two film directors who are coming with a strong vision on what could be storytelling in VR, so Felix and Paul. And we created a studio, so I'm the studios, so I'm the guy doing all the boring things, like we call ourselves producers, so we know we rather get the directors under the light, but that's what we're trying to build. Thanks for the film market for the invitation. It's a real honor. And the reason why it is because, and I'm going to give a spoiler right away, so what I'm trying to express in the next 45 minutes, I'm going to tell it to you right away. So if you want to have meetings and save 45 minutes of your time, the chance for me to be here is to be able to express that today there's a certain amount of headset out in the market. We're still talking about a young industry. But think about 2 years from now, and think about the time it takes to make a movie. So now is the time to get ambitious projects started, and that's why being able to express that and being at the film market and seeing so many content creators meeting potential financiers, distributors, talking together, talking about future projects, that's what we need to talk about today. I want to thank the Canadian Embassy for bringing me here. And quick note about the Canadian ecosystem. We have an institution called the Canada Media Fund, and for the past decade, they've created a conversion fund which was investing dollars into different forms of narrative attached to television and films. And I don't think they planned it, but what it created in Canada, it's an ecosystem of content creators, both on the creative and the tech side, being able to, and having to think beyond television, beyond the screen, and thinking about other ways of storytelling. So I don't think they planned it, but they managed to create a great ecosystem in Canada for creating new content open to new form of media. When the team asked me, oh, you should give a title to your presentation, we were having a conversation about what is VR, and Facebook move with spaces where you can meet people in virtual reality. So then getting into all this conversation, VR is about social, VR is about interactivity. And then you think about Microsoft WMR, and all its different partnership, and you think, well, VR, it's although about engineering, it's although about education, it's about many functions which can be used in the economy, like in today's world, to create more value and create different aspects. But then there's the gaming, obviously, but ultimately, and the reason why we've been doing VR, it's because we're coming from the storytelling, and we still think, and everybody here think that too, that VR needs storytelling as well. And that's what we've been doing starting in 2013. The first time, Matt mentioned earlier that the first experience he watched in VR was a roller coaster. Our first experience we watched in VR was actually an empty theater. So you were in an empty room in a theater with a screen, and just having the notion, the feeling of being really present into this theater, that's what really starts our interest into VR. And that's what we tried to do when we did our first experience with Patrick Watson. And it's initially was a 10-minute piece, shortened to 5 minutes. And really what we found out by doing this piece at the time is that we were able to bring the audience in such a close proximity, intimacy, and making feel you present into this scene and engaged with with your environment, what was happening. We felt that it was so strong that it was too important to not continue and explore that. And actually, we were already engaged into this exploration using stereoscopic as a window to a different world, and bring you a new way to experience the reality. And that's why we decided to actually stop everything else we were doing and focus only in VR. And in the same time, doing that, we although find out the complexity of bringing the audience, the viewer, right in the middle of the experience, and how we had to compose with so many subtle choices that have to be made as a way you tell the story, the way you engage the person, the audience, the way you have limitation as you engage the person as well, the audience, into the experience, because you're there, but you're not really there. And as a content creator, you have to make sure that the audience still thinks he's here and forget that he's not there. And there's so many ways to do that, and there's so many flaws and dangers to just wanting to push a little bit too much, and engaging too much the audience will trigger some reaction, which will make you realize the limitation of the medium, so you can't answer, and then bring you out of the experience. So we had all this new territory to explore, and new forms of telling stories, and that's why we wanted to create not only a production house, but really wanted to create a studio. And the notion of a studio is important for us because in this new medium, you have the technical challenge. So we develop different technologies which allows the storytellers to create the best stories. But we also wanted to create work which could be a new language that we could communicate with other filmmakers who would be able to join in the studio to develop more content with us, along with us. And then right after we get the Facebook buying Oculus and Samsung partnering together, and then really jump-starting a new industry, which is the virtual reality. They asked us to create the introduction to VR, and really the mandate for us was to try to show what could be the potential of virtual reality. And in this experience, which is an edit of different scenes, really what we tried to do is still being, emphasizing, putting importance to the notion for the audience to be present, to be engaged into the content, showing and traveling the audience into different worlds where you can't go. And that's one of the strengths of the medium, is to be able really to transport you in different, to make you live different experiences. For some content creators like Cirque du Soleil, it was a natural fit to explore VR as a way to tell stories. So it was using existing IP and trying to convert that into VR. And initially, they approached us with a desire to, just film Cirque du Soleil show into VR. And we actually decided to work with them and to not just to film, but really to recreate a new genre with Cirque's content and tell new stories. So we really re-edit, rework, work with the metteurs en scène and concept creators of each shows to recreate what is really native virtual reality stories. So we did 4 contributions with these guys. And in 2016, we, Inside the Box of Curious, won the first Daytime Award, which was great. Well, it's great for the personal recognition, but it was great to see that even that early into the evolution, the life of VR, of this young industry, you start to get recognition from the entertainment industry. Coming from the documentary world, we naturally started to explore, still bringing you like the notion of presence for the audience, bringing you to places it would be challenging for you to go, and in the same time exploring different formats. We created this first series, a series of documentary where you first go in Mongolia, then you can go in Kenya with the Maasai people, and in Borneo with the Sea Gypsies. So that's really the documentary, not reinventing the form, but just by the simplicity of it, it's really enhanced the experience of discovering a new culture. And the way we've done it, we realized that we didn't need any voiceovers, so it although gives the opportunity for the audience really to experience on their own and approach this new culture on their own and understand them directly without having a voiceover and people taking them by the hand and telling them what to see, what to watch, what to understand. Space. Talking about space where we need to can bring the audience. So that's the first collaboration that we're doing with NASA, and we released the first experience at Sundance. even like in the world of documentary, you still need to inspire the audience. You still need to give a reason for the audience to come into VR, and just making great content on its own, original, is not enough today. You need to attract, give a reason for people to go buy, find an headset and put it on. So working with NASA and space triggers interest from everybody. Especially in the States, like talking about astronauts, they're like superheroes for them, and that's a way we thought to bring audience to explore VR, and that's the first season that we're doing, and we are now. I'll talk about it later on. We are trying to go to actually space, to the International Space Station. Sorry. Bring people to space being a place where everybody wants to go. VR also needs today to get talent, renowned names. So it's always the same concept, same idea. What would help to jumpstart the industry? We need to give a reason for the audience to come in. So LeBron James is one of the sport talent we started to work with. And in the music world, so we're working with Drake and Eminem, same here. We need to give names to the audience, create attraction for this new medium, and we need to go with talent. So we got the documentary side, you get the music world, you get the entertainment world with Cirque du Soleil, and then you can also use VR, and many other content creators did the same, exploring social reason to like using VR for social cause. And in this one, we work with the White House and Obama about the national park preservation, and we continue working with the White House, and did a documentary about with Barack Obama and its 8 years at the White House and what it means. Personally, but also what is the White House and does it represent? So covering some political ground, and getting an Emmy here again still reinforce the notion that the interest from the entertainment world to get demonstrating their interest into VR as really a confirmed new medium. So we did 2 pieces with the White House. So naturally, right after working twice with Obama, you need to continue and go to comedy. Comedy that we started with our team Just for Laugh in Canada. And this one is very interesting. It has been produced with Google, and for those who don't make the difference between VR and 360 content, I invite you to watch the confessional. It's on YouTube. And you will see initially you will land, even though it has been conceived and thought for VR, you will mostly watch it on your phone. And 360, and you will watch the piece, and it's a good piece. You're in a confessional, and you get talent, 7 talents, or you get Trevor Noah being one of them, sitting down next to you and confessing something, which is quite funny. And you watch it on the phone, it's 360, it's great, you can move around. But then if you manage to have a headset and put the phone in the headset, and then the experience is very different. I really invite you to do the exercise as content creator, to think the difference between 360 and VR, and I think that's a good example where the 360 is, it's good, but watch it in VR, and the difference, the presence, the proximity, the engagement you will feel will be very different. Stars. This one was done with Fox Searchlight pretty early on, with Reese and Laura Dern. And actually it's a fiction, it's a linear piece, but with some interactive components. So depending on where you're looking, it will trigger different elements. So it's not interactive as per se, but we call it more reactive. And it just flows naturally with your behavior into the story. So this one was made based on Wild. Wild is a movie from Jean-Marc Vallée. So it's kind of starting this whole wave of companion material in VR. And that's a good start. That's a good start to get started, but that's not enough. There is, well, yeah, with Jurassic World, that's the same thing, but the way we approached Jurassic World was quite different. We actually talked to the team at Universal and said, listen, we already did a companion piece. We understand the marketing need for doing more companion piece. But what would be great is to be able to actually go into story extension. So starting from an existing IP and creating a new way of telling the story about the same IP, but in different ways. So we did this one, Apatosaurus, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. We are doing 2 more of them, 2 more episodes. And that's the way we approach Universal. It's like, allow us to keep telling a story between the movies. And there is something here to be thought about for anybody developing strong IP. Keep pushing, how can we create additional interest into the movie and creating a story extension. And on our side, as VR content creators and people working in the industry, that's what we need. We need strong IP. Apatosaurus was downloaded over 10 million times today, which is pretty interesting when you think the market is probably of 15 to 20 million headsets. So that demonstrates that the strong IP is what will bring audience to VR, and from there we'll be able to create new IP. But we first need existing and known talent, stars, and IP to come in, to join the industry, to help it jumpstart the industry. And we need talent. We need filmmakers. We need other filmmakers to join in, renowned filmmakers. So working with Mr. Anderson was a great premiere for us. And it's in stop motion, so that's great. Even though it's a companion film, companion experience, it's about kind of the making of I Love Dogs. And it's really an ode to the animators, the work they're doing. And you see all the making of, you even see Wes on screen, the way he gives the guidance for the acting of the dogs. But on its own, it's an experience on its own. It's a piece on its own, which can live alone. And hopefully that's the first relationship, collaboration we're doing with Mr. Anderson and other filmmakers. We need these names to come into VR. But in order to do so, we need to, in a way, help them. And that's what we did with the studio, is you need to get the tools, you need to provide them the tool, but you also need to show them a body of existing work so they know where they're going. They can see their experience, the way they think through how they can best tell a story by watching existing work. So far we have produced 20 experiences. We have 40 in development, and at least it helps the communication, the exchange with the filmmakers, directors who want to jump in. And coming in a studio where you get the tech and the experience and the language, kind of reassure them, and although help to push further and avoid some pitfall we experienced in the past, and just bring all the intelligence into ambitious project. That's what we're doing with Chris and Maciek from the team from Clyde Henry, people from creators from Montreal. They did Madame Tootly Pootly in 2007. They've been got a prize at Cannes and nominated by the Academy. Stop motion, again, we're working with the National Film Board. Stop motion in VR is amazing. If you want to have some stills to show you in VR, that's pretty impressive, and it works very well. So working with different talent, bringing them from conventional 2D storytelling into VR is very exciting. 2 years ago, we completed MIUBI. So Matt early on was talking about the format that we have to keep in mind when we're creating content. MIUBI is a 40-minute long linear and interactive piece. So there is few elements of interactivity built in, and there's even an Easter egg. So if you manage to find the right items, you will meet your creator, with Jeff Goldblum, and who's telling you that he created a paradise for you. But that's a 40-minute piece, and the reason why we did it, well, many reasons, but we had to face different challenges. So the format 40 minutes, how do you keep someone engaged into a headset, being at the heart of the story where you don't have a distance with the screen, you are in the story, a fiction for 40 minutes. How do we keep you engaged? And that's a huge challenge creatively. And then obviously there's the technical challenge. How do we show a 40-minute piece on a mobile phone, especially if the most mobile phone users are Samsungs, which have a tendency to overheat quickly. So but it all confirmed when working with Oculus, trying to see the analytic, what was the answer. People get into the 40 minutes and watch the 40 minutes through. So over 85% of the people watching the content watch the entire experiences, which is a very good sign. So there is space for long-form format in VR. Our preference as of today is to explore episodic content, going to series of content, and that's a way to engage the audience and get them to come back to the different platforms. Sorry, Matt, I didn't read your presentation before. What's next? I took the same title. Remember the dawn of cable. So do you remember when cable decided to move into original content and the hit it was, the opportunity it represented? And is the console gaming market big enough? Well, not today, but in 2 years from now, reading different forecasts, we will have, like VR will have the same size than the console gaming market. I think we're starting to talk about, an important market. So original content addressing a market which is as big as the gaming market. I think that's what we have to think about, and we have to think about it today. That's just the Gartner Hype Cycle. It just gives you an idea of the different technology which is developed and where virtual reality is. But still, it's still at 2 to 5 years from getting to a bigger market. 2 to 5 years, well, there's a lot of filmmakers and producers. You know how much time it takes to make a film on a screen. Like 2 years, it's when everything is going very fine and you're super lucky. Well, that's, 2 to 5 years, we're 2018, we got a market which is fast growing, and by 2020, we'll have the size of the gaming industry. Well, now is the time to create ambitious projects. Now is the time to move forward and start thinking about original content, original IP. In order to do that, we have the studio, that's what we created, and that's what it takes to make movies in VR. You need the concept, obviously, the story, but then you need all the capacity which goes around, and that's something, just a summary, and you used to see that for cinema. That's exactly the same tool you need, just that they are made for VR. But the fact that we have that today, what it allows us to do is that we have to understand the reality of the market. Even though we want to come with ambitious projects, we know the financing is not there. Therefore, the budget for creating high content quality is not there. So in order to be able to create this quality of content, you need to control your cost. And the minute you have to outsource, work with different people, different partners, your budget goes high. Well, you all know that. So what we decided is to keep everything inside, not because we're a tech company and want to focus on developing a lot of patents and etc., but just because the market forces us to, and we have to be able to control our cost. And without compromising the quality. There's no ways we can compromise quality in VR. It's not because it's in VR 360 that the audience will accept that the quality is different from what they're used to watch on Netflix or HBO or in a theater. Sound. We created this sound studio, but sound is super important. It's a poor child in cinema. We've been, everybody is talking about it, but in VR, it's super, super, super key. And it can be, it is interactive, it's spatialized, so we need to be able to allow that. So when we see different platforms, a broadcaster, telco jumping into VR, creating their own platform, or even festival, when they want to synchronize different headsets together, the choice of platforms, please consider sound. It's super important. So that's a kind of summary of distribution, content distribution. Nothing new here. That's something you already know. That's something we already work with. You create your content. You want to distribute it either directly by TV through to the consumer, to the audience, or you have the theaters, LBs, and you have subscription model. Honestly, to be able to sell directly your content, well, that's the same thing for anybody who's pushing their content on iTunes. Well, you need to come with a lot of marketing expenses and known actors, known talent, and ideally a known IP. That's what would make it work. What is new from the past year is seeing theaters moving, creating space, freeing square feet to make space for headset, VR headset. And that's the one strong way, a strong change for us to bring awareness to audience about VR and what could be VR. And the App Store, SVOD, Matt mentioned it earlier early on with Little Star. Little Star is free for the audience. Most of the platform distribute content for free, and that's a challenge for us as content creator because while we need to bring audience, we need to create awareness. In the same time, we need to demonstrate that there's a market. And we can't currently make the demonstration of the monetization. Well, there's few examples, but still very few, very limited. We are limited to our data. So the minute you want to come with a great script, great concept, even you have the knowledge, the technology, you need to convince film investors, financiers, to invest in this new industry. And without data, that's pretty tough. So that's something which needs to change. And what happened in Sundance with Sphere, it's a great sign. The fact that theaters are jumping in, making square feet, being able to monetize the content, bring audience is going to change things. I think platforms like Little Star starting to monetize will help to move forward. And the fact that there's new headset coming in the market, Oculus launching the Go for $299, you have the headset, you don't need to buy a phone, and that will increase drastically the number of headsets out in the market and the size of the industry. So what's coming soon? The main challenge still today is the minute you have, let's say, IP talent, you still have a big challenge, which is how do I finance my content? And the reason there is a film market is not only to sell your movie, but it's also to get a co-producer meeting together and being able to find different sources of financing from their respective countries. So, for example, in Canada, there's international co-production agreement, there's tax credit incentive, which help content creators to work together. Well, that's the same thing in France and Germany. So there's different partnerships. So we need to really think about how to best take over and develop original content in VR, to think through co-production. That's a key element, especially if we want to come with ambitious project that the audience will need and is looking for. So I'm going to run through a slate of content we are currently developing just to give an idea where we are heading and what we're planning to do. And then I'm here to talk about it and share the continued conversation. So Cirque du Soleil, ongoing collaboration with them. We're exploring SIGSDOF. So there's definitely the linear storytelling, cinematic content that we're still exploring because that's what is the DNA of the studio. But we have to explore as well SIGSDOF and interactive content. And we found that Beatles love and MJ1, based on Michael Jackson's show, are two great experiences to work with. IP, we need to bring IP to VR. Vikings, which is a show by MGM, I think they are the 7th season, is giving us carte blanche, so starting to give us a license for exploitation to explore the world of Viking and see how we can transport that into VR. So it's not creating, for once, it's not creating a marketing piece. It's really exploring the story extension of an existing IP and see how can that work, how we can monetize that. Bringing more talent, so working with Gus Van Sant, we want to create a series where, led by Gus, we'll create more original content and bring other filmmakers to create short pieces to explore the medium, and the thematic will be dreams. And that's a nice way for us to explore with other content filmmakers and see how they can do their first jump and dive into VR. Panopticon, that's a new original piece. We developed it internally. Think about 1984. We think it's appropriate. Thinking, Facebook is investing in Oculus and leading the industry and want to have 1 billion headset out in the market. And that you lock into a VR and we can control the environment. We thought that was a pretty funny and interesting ways to explore this form of storytelling. Polaris, talking about co-production, working with the French partners, Les Partenaires. It's a sci-fi series, so we are aiming for 6 times 20 minutes. So mostly in everything we're developing, it's episodic content. 20 minutes seems to be the right format for us, but we are not locked in format, so you can play easily from 5 to 35. But 6 times 20 minutes seems to be the right format on both telling a story into VR, maintaining the audience attention, and being able to distribute it. Pinkbox, that's our new project which is the most advanced. We're very excited about this project. You can think about it as Blade Runner meets Orange is the New Black. That we're very excited to work this one. We get support from the Canadian funding system, and we're looking for financing partner on this one. Tale of Sen, Jim Henson. So Jim Henson developed a script which was never turned into a film, and we're taking giving a try in VR, and we're working with a great script that we are turning into a VR script, which is challenging. Like the transition from a script in cinema is way different from the same script in VR. It comes with a challenge, but it's very challenging and interesting. Well, this one, you can think about Sergio Leone meets Brazil. I have a blank. Terry Gilliams, thank you. The Widows, a piece inspired by an existing novel. We're developing that with Michael Fassbender as a co-producer. Here again, possibility of co-production, and that's definitely something we need to explore more and more. So that's really an adventure VR experience following 2 men. And then space. That's our next big project that we are focusing on. We've been working with the NASA for the past 2 years. It's a very complex organization to work with. But the goal ultimately is to bring us to the International Space Station, and ideally to have a spacewalk together. That's what we're working on these days. So that's it. Well, that's just a short overview of, we have 40 projects currently in development. And well, as you can all guess, there's many challenges to face, and we have to work together to see how we can tackle that. But really, now is the time to think about, what will be available for the audience in 2 years from now, and finding ways to engage talent, IP, and financing together to make a great content for the next 2 years. Thanks.
I think because we've got some time, is it okay for a short Q&A?
Yeah, sure.
So I would like to ask the audience if you've got any questions. Come on. This is a one-time experience, maybe. Yes, please. Können wir das Mikro ganz kurz hochmachen, das andere? Audio? Okay.
Thank you. A great presentation. Great things you already produced. How many of those VR shows you did are for free on Oculus and Edge by percentage? How many are for free? And how many were industry funded?
So most of the content is available for free. The way we get content finance is kind of reproducing the film system where we're licensing our content to Oculus. So our main partner is Oculus so far. They've been financing. They have the biggest budget in terms of investment into content. So we, you sell the content to Oculus for a certain window of exclusivity, and then when it's out, then we'll bring it to the market. We'll monetize it. But in the same time, monetizing before then was kind of pointless. You want to inspire the audience. That's the initial goal. Starting the market to grow slowly, we're planning to monetize content. So we're trying to do that with Cirque du Soleil, the initial experiences we created. We are monetizing it across platform, but we're going slowly, and the goal is, well, ideally, yes, to make money out of it, but more, it's more about learning from the platform, gaining intelligence, what is the right price, how people consume content, how people download the experiences. So that's the current model. And with the other players, Samsung, Google coming as financer, that's the same. It's pre-licensing model where they get the finance and buy a window of exclusivity on their platform.
Is this working now?
Okay, well, that's your microphone, okay? I have a short question. You said the sound is very important in the immersive experiences you are developing. And my question is, are you in-house developing tech solutions for the new experience of sound, or are you working with external studios?
So we're developing tech on video capture, all the pipeline integration and the distribution for app. On the sound, not that much. We are collaborating with, Fraunhofer, for example, who is developing some solutions. There's a lot of, tech company developing great solutions, and sound has been I would say, underexploited for the past decades. There's so many existing tools and solutions that we just need, like VR is just a new opportunity for using existing tools and bringing that into VR. And what is missing are more the software and the knowledge on how to best spatialize, like put the sound into space for the experiences and playing with all the interactivity. And for the game industry, help a lot, although the sound. How do you bring sound, interactive sound into game engine? There's a lot of knowledge to be developed. And to me, sound is more a question about know-how, knowledge, being smart about it, and the resources exist. So either, in Germany with Fraunhofer or in Canada, you get great companies.
In France also?
And in France also, that's true, yes. Well, co-production, all the countries, definitely.
Okay, first of all, I would like to say that I love how you make a distinction between 360 video and VR video. I think it's a very important point, at least from my point of view. What do you think about the 180 stereoscopic format, what Google tries to push by also launching consumer cameras for that format, and which gives in movie making a lot more freedom since you don't have to hide everything, your equipment and everything?
We were joking at Sundance to get Google with the stickers for 180 VR, and we were wondering if it was 4:3 or 16:9. No, but that's true. Like the way you consume, what I don't know is 180 stereoscopic. At least, I hope so.
Yeah, of course.
No, but it makes it easier. And it has to be explored, and that's true when you think about how people will use and watch content. You don't want all the time to have to look all around. So the fact that it's 360 is not because it's 360 that you have to have systematically everything happening around you, but it definitely helps to immerse you into the content. But then, still, it's all about content. Is the story good? If you manage to give me a reason just to watch in front of me and get me engaged into the story, I'll get there.
Is it a format you would consider using?
No. No, we're really focusing in 360 3D. There's a lot to exploit here, a lot to try. That's what we've been trying to do, been doing for the past 5 years, and all our project guides us, bring us to 360. There's so much to explore. So there's so much room for everybody to dive in and explore 180, even interactive content, animation. We're not doing animation, we're doing stop motion. But animation, there's great studios exploring animation. Interactive, we're exploring. Six-Dove, we're exploring because it's an ongoing conversation with the team at Cirque du Soleil. Well, that's the beauty of VR. There's so much to explore. It's a new area. We need everybody to jump in and, explore. We can't do it all.
Thank you.
Hi there, I'm Benjamin. Which artist would you like to see come to VR? Which artist do you think is inspiring and could help bring the medium further?
Well, we talked with Terry Malick. I'd love to see a VR piece. Actually, he did one. I haven't seen it, so he's coming in. But Terry, to us, is kind of natural. Well, Wes Anderson. We did this one for Isle of Dogs, but it was kind of a companion experience to Isle of Dogs. I'd love to see a stop motion or even a film from Mr. Anderson into VR. Like that'd be amazing. Well, Felix and Paul, I'd love to see them keep exploring. Like the guys are cooking pretty interesting content. So many names, so many talent. And what's interesting is to see. So, you know, we are all talking about the film industry, and actually more on the experiential side, you start to see more content creators being interested in jumping and diving into VR. And what would be interesting is to see how the two can meet, and where you can get either younger filmmakers tagging along with experienced content creators coming from stage world or from theater, and having young filmmakers from who did some work in VR, tagging along with experienced filmmakers who don't want to dive on alone, but want to have some partners, creative. So I think we'll see a lot of collaboration of different experience, either filmmakers or content creators coming from other horizons and merging into, converging into VR. That's.
So this is the last question.
Great pressure. Thanks a lot. You were talking about the theaters. You were talking about where to exploit it, not only in virtual. My question would be, because it's a very big thing now that you have VR cinemas, and are you also venturing into interactivity? Would the viewer become somebody that could be exploiting more and more content, since we are already in theaters doing something with our hands, Would that be something for Felix and Paul, interactivity?
Yeah, well, for a lot of content creators, we start to see that. You start to see a lot of people doing, even games, room-scale game, where you can interact with you're part of the content, you are the content in a way. We are exploring some 6DoF interactive experience, but I think it's very limited. Well, Interactivity, we started to do that back in 2014 with Wild, where the way you behave have an interaction to content. Are we going to focus on interactivity? No, we're going to focus on storytelling. But then there's other players exploring that. And for LBE and VR theaters, what we start to see is that there's an appetite for both. There's appetite for interactive content, but there's also an appetite for cinematic, more laid-back, I would say, experiences. So the audience is very different, and I think there's the same again. Like there's so much to explore, so much to be done. But the fact that theaters are making space for VR, it's a big game changer in the industry, because that's the way we bring people, audience, to explore VR. And it being an interactive experience or a linear experience, I think the audience has such an appetite. The minute they start VR, there's such an appetite to discover everything. That's so we need both. Is it for Felix and Paul Studio? Well, actually, it is. Any content creators coming with any story, a great content, and wanted to collaborate with us and explore with us, we're there for that.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Stéphane Rituit.